Hey everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your art Sherpa, and woo, I'm so excited to show you this winter landscape. I really am thrilled about this. This is about a 3-hoot painting, but I think it's a really fun one you guys should go for. There's some new techniques. We're going to cover like acrylic grounds in a new way, how to paint snow, how to get a crisp sky, all different new techniques. And we're going to do it step by step, fully explained, so you can paint this at home. Get your paint, get your brushes, come back and meet us at the Easel real soon. And if you're thinking this is a cool idea, you could hit like on the way by. Let's recap the materials. I have an 11 by 14 canvas board. That is a rigid board with a surface prep for painting. I have brushes for acrylic painting, mostly brights, between 10 and 2 that have a firm filament. The media I have over here is ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, cad yellow medium, hue is perfectly fine, burnt sienna, titanium white, and zinc white. Now you can, if you don't have zinc white, thin your titanium white with a little bit of this, which is acrylic glazing liquid gloss. Also over here I have a bit of gesso and some more ultramarine blue. And the reason for that is I want to begin this painting with a colored ground. There are a lot of ways to correctly do a colored ground and incorrectly do a colored ground, and this is one of the safe ways to do a colored ground that won't give you any underbinding. Let me show you how I get that on. I'm going to take the paint over here with my palette knife. A lot of times on my channel we mix things with brushes, but you can see that this is very, very sticky, right? And if you were to try to mix this with your brush, it would be creeping up your beautiful brush, getting all in your ferrule and causing you trouble. But by just taking advantage of the fact that I have a palette knife, I can do it easily here. Little tip though, if you don't have a palette knife, you could just use a plastic spoon from fast food. Just anything that doesn't have bristles in it to cause it to creep up your brush. You can just see I'm mixing this around and it's mostly pretty uniform. It's a mid-blue color and this is a very good ground. I'm going to wipe off my palette knife so that's clean, all the way back to clean. There we go, back to perfect. And I'm going to take up this delight. Do you see this is really gorgeous? It is not necessary to use this brush to paint this in. I just get to use this brush to paint this in. Copper ferrules are just my favorite thing right now in brushes. And I just love the combo of this, and this is great. This is essentially like a really gorgeous 2-inch brush, which would work on this, but we're going to just, for the holidays, enjoy painting in with this. You use what you have at home. I'm not even going to get this wet at this stage. I'm going to see how this goes on without any added water because I want a nice gessoed background that I can sketch my landscape in. Now, not only will I not get underbinding, all right, I am needing a little bit because this is so thick. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to dip a titch of water, drag the excess off, titch of water, drag the excess off, and come over here. All right. Just painting the whole thing in with this ground. Again, I don't want this watery or over thinned. I just want it to exit my brush and go onto the canvas in a reasonable way. Doesn't take a couple coats. This is just about making sure that your canvas for your landscape painting looks very finished and complete. It has a lot of depth. Also, this technique will allow you to use more expressive techniques and still have them look professional and finished. Getting this all over my fingers. That's fun. Oh yeah, I didn't even need any water at all. I'm just trying to load this up on the brush. It's fun stuff though. You can tint any gesso you have. You can tint a student gesso. You can tint a pro gesso. I'm going to wash out this brush. I think it's really important to clean the big brushes right away. Come back and show you how to sketch in the landscape. Hey, now that we've created the colored ground, whenever you hear an artist say colored ground, what they're saying is that they have created a field of color on the canvas so that when the canvas shines through the paint, there's a color luminosity that comes through. It helps create a completed, resolved, finished result in a painting. By using gesso to create our colored ground, we now have a surface that takes paint easily, but also takes our sketching. So we can get our landscape in with no trouble. Let's put that in real quick, and then we can get painting. Now over here on my canvas on the right hand side, 5.5 inches from the top, I'm going to make a little mark. And over here from the left hand side, 6.75 inches from the top, I'm going to make another little mark. And then I'm going to draw out a very uneven organic line. In fact, if straight lines have not been your friend most of your life, wow, you are in luck. This is your jam. I'm going to make a little bump up for the mountain. This has been pushed up by geological forces over time, sinking down here, coming back up, and wandering down. Now I'm still going to bother to paint this in, even though I know the trees are going to cover this out quite a lot. The next mark that I'm going to do is down here at right at the 6 inch from the top mark, and down here at the 8.5 inch over here on the left. This is a closer hill. This hill is closer to me, and if you remember what we talked about on 0 point perspective, this would be an element of that, where we don't have converging lines, but we have elements that let us know that this hill is closer than, say, that hill. I am drawing my little wandering, meandering line. Again, this is going to be covered up. Once I have these two in, I can put in my mid hill. This hill is between my close hill and my distant mountain. It will have a tree line, and it will give me a sense of space in the landscape. Now over here, right at the 8 inch mark, I'm going to tell myself a little something I need to know about a shadow. I'm going to draw in this little sliver, right? And I'm going to bring this here. It has a friend though that's light. I'm going to bring this down. Again, a little sliver wanders back and comes down here. That's about 2 fingers from the bottom. Now, I know I'm going to have trees here. You can draw them in now. This first tree is a 1/2 inch from the left-hand side and comes up about 3 fingers above my mountain. This next tree over is 2 inches, and it starts a little lower than its two friends. This is probably going to get painted out, and so sometimes I like to put marks at the top, so if I have to put them back in, I don't lose what I was thinking. I'm going to put this one. This one should be shorter than its friends. I'm going to mark in where I feel like a shadow is going to be, and then I'm going to come along the bottom and I'm adding another little bit of light. Right? I know I'm going to have some light here, but it's very blended and I want to work that at the last minute. You can, if you need to, kind of make a little scribble where you're saying these are shadows, so that you know these marks here are lights. You can even, if you need to, do an L. Let's paint in the sky. But very importantly, I need to say where my sun is going to be, because later I need it to be peeking out from the branches. So above the tip of this and over between the left-hand side of my tree, I'm going to add this little circle. That's going to tell me some things about my sun when I later try to create my beautiful radiation. Okay, so now we get to pick a brush. Always one of my favorite parts. I love to go through my little brush jar, kind of ruffling through and trying to find the perfect fit for me. I like my brushes to have firm filaments made for acrylic painting with a well-balanced handle and well-constructed. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're expensive, but it is nice if they're well-considered and well-engineered. This is a good example of that. It's going to hold up well. It's not going to pop in the water if I leave it in. And it's going to give me a lot of control over my paint and not overload my water. I'll show you what I mean. So for my sky, I'm actually using 2 blues. I had a little paint on the edge of my cup there. So I'm going to get my brush wet and I'm going to drag off the extra water because I don't want to have too much in there. And I'm going to start at my horizon, which is my lightest point. I'm going to take, this is my phthalo. Sometimes it can be hard to tell. There you go. Phthalo blue from ultramarine. And you might need to, if you're new to painting, to mark those two paints so you don't mix them up, because they're actually very different. I'm pulling out just a dusting of my phthalo. I'm going to grab a little glazing medium so I get a nice blend in my sky. And I'm going to come along my mountaintops. Yes, I am. Now I used chalk pencils in a nice gray to sketch in my sky. And what's lovely about that is it blends beautifully into the paint and almost even adds an element to it. If I used graphite, it might blend in a gray line to my paint. And graphite bleeds through acrylic paint. Fine if you want it, super upsetting if you don't. I'm going to come right here. I probably will make a little rounded stroke right at that space because I'm going to be starting to create the sense of a very bright winter sun. Pulling my paint out. I like my liquid glazing medium because it slows the drying time down of my acrylic paint and allows me to do thin, transparent glazes at the same time. Pretty cool stuff. I'm going to just enjoy this right here. I really like that. It feels super expressive. I'm going to soften it, blend it, and really enjoy that. Then I'm going to wipe it off, and I'm going to get my ultramarine, just pure ultramarine. I might get some glazing liquid, but I'm going to come up to the top of my canvas and start putting in this part of my sky. The cooling balance between these two blues creates such a distinctive winter sky. Winters tend to be limited palettes anyways, which means I'm not using a lot of colors of paint to create them. Even on landscapes. Landscapes can be very beautiful and still very simple. I am just blending this here. I want this to have a nice, rich, powerful feel. I'm going to add a little white right here. I'm going to be blending these two spaces together. This is pretty exciting. You can see how different these two skies, how they are. They're just not the same. Here's my glazing medium. Look at that. So I don't have a lot of phthalo blue in this piece. It's just right here and in the sky. All right. And a little white. I'm going to get my glazing medium. If you're doing landscapes, I think getting a blending medium, or this liquid glaze that I like, I think it's a very essential thing for this type of acrylic work. Let's just blend that around here. Now, one thing that I can do to make sure that this is quite dramatic is I can take a little of this phthalo and a little of the ultramarine and mix them together and hit the top of this just to make sure that it's really, 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 oh, that paint went flying, really, really, really powerful. A lot going on here. Super enjoyable. Oh my goodness, just enjoy that. Now, if you're feeling overwhelmed by the mixing of the two blues, you can see me feathering here, you can always go through and just say, all right, I'm just going to do phthalo here. Pull out my ultramarine and my white again. Just give those a nice blend. Wipe my brush off if I need to between those two fields. Just something nice to make that work. Lots of reflection, lots of emotion. Glazing medium. Alright, so we get a beautiful blend here. We're not using oils, but we still have a lot going on. It's a nice mountain sky. Super fun stuff. Let's get our mountain in. So I'm going to pull out a slightly smaller brush. I love picking it, as I said. It's always fun for me to rifle through. I'm going to pick somebody that gives me some control. This is a number 6 bright. I like brights because flats can be very long and overpull water in for acrylic paint. And you need a little more flick on your brush to get a good result with heavy body paint. Let's start sketching in the shadows on our mountain. I'm going to take my ultramarine blue out and I'm going to mix white to ultramarine, about a 1-to-1 mixture here. And I might lighten it over here with my white. Let's lighten it, lighten it, lighten it. So there's our mid. It's going to be our up front shadows. But I want to have this be about half of that. That's perfect. This now looks like it'll be far away. I'm going to come to the top of my mountain and I'm going to carefully paint in my mountain shadow. I'm going to take this mountain shadow back along this little ridge back here and pull it down a titch and back that way. And then I think that I've got maybe another little shadow that's going to peek up right here, come up my mountain. And then another distant little shadow. Another place that I can start thinking about putting in my darker shadows is I can paint in this hill. So I'm going to get just a smidge, a drop of water on my brush. I'll pull it out, making that slightly darker gray. Well, it's not really gray, it's the ultramarine and white. And I'm going to make this mountain feel a little closer because it's slightly darker and brighter. Isn't that interesting? Just painting along the top, painting that in. Now over here we know our trees are going to cover a lot of this, so we don't have to be that worried. But I still like, because bits will peek out between the branches, I still like to finish and resolve it. That is how I am. You can see my pencil sketch, my charcoal sketch is still staying in there and holding pretty well. Now I'm going to pull out a little more of this. And let's start talking about the shadow that's coming right here. I know I'm going to have a couple trees here, so these guys need a shadow. I just dipped the tip of my bristles in the water there. Right? And then let's put this right here, come along this highlight. Let's merge these, traveling down. And paint that all in. If you need a bigger brush, which I do, look at me, I'm going to switch up to, I think, a nice number 8, bright. Again, I just want to work these areas more confidently. I'm going to come along here. This shadow here is going to be my darkest shadow, so this value won't really work quite yet. Let's put that glazing medium in there. Painting this shadow to the trees. See, the shadow is actually the trees are casting that. If the sun is coming through here, the objects that are tall and blocking are going to make these beautiful, cool, interesting shadows. on the mountain. Having some fun just putting that in. Trying to just keep it loose and not, too overwhelmed. Alright. And I'm going to pull a little of my darkest ultramarine out. Just go ahead and darken this spot right here that I drew in earlier. I'm going to be blending and changing that a bit, but it's good to have in now just so I can see that value for when I go back and add my deepest color in the painting. And you can go ahead and darken this spot a little bit too, where the two trees are going to sit. So once I have that, I'm going to rinse out my brush really well. I'm probably going to go back to my number 6 bright. I got my number 6 bright. I'm going to put some snow on these mountains, which is super fun for me. Go ahead and pull out some of your white. Now I'm going to let a little of my ultramarine be in it, right? So it's not going to be totally pure titanium white. I'm going to mist my palette so my paint isn't drying out on me and skinning. I'm just cooking along, having a good time. And I'm going to cast some of this beautiful mountain sunlight on this mountain. If you live in the mountains, you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to come along the little ridge here. And I'm just going to paint in this. Look how loose it is, just very loose and coming up there, very expressive. This will be very important, and this is where the colored ground will really help you. Come along here and just put a little of this color right here up the back side, and then if you want to, you can pull even a lighter run just along that ridge. Maybe a little bit of that up the top, because you want it to feel like it's got this shape and it's catching what's happening. So now I have a nice sort of mountain set with shadow. I can actually come along here up close and start working this out. So I want a color that's a little lighter than the shadow, because this is where my sunlight's following, and I'm going to use a lot of glazing medium so I get a nice blend. I'm going to just come along here and dust this. And by the way, I'm not remotely done with the sky. Working that. This is a lot like a grayscale painting. Winter paintings often are. Getting my other little bit of glazing medium. Do I like this stuff? Yes, I do. Yes, I do like this stuff. Painting this in. So that when we have this nice little blend here, I'm going to pull out even more white. Look at this, I'm going to come along here, create this highlight right here. See how I let the paint there kind of just break and pop over the canvas? This is a wonderful, wonderful looseness that we have, that we can do, that we just have this option for when we're painting snow, and it's something that pleases me to no end. I'm going to pull some more paint on my brush. You can see there's blue on it, there's white on it, there's a lot happening here, right? I'm going to come here and create this little patch of sunlight. Look at that. And the fact that the ground is under there is really helping me succeed at that. And my last little patch of sunlight can be right down here in this bit of snow. So I've got some of that in. You can always come in and work it a little bit if you feel like you need to. And this little area could use a slightly lighter highlight. So I'm going to come in just along the top. And we'll put our nice little fields of mountains in and maybe some little cloud effect happening here. But we've got to get that sun in. And I'm going to get a clean cup of water. Okay, so now I've got another number 10 bright. Now this white is really surrounded by blue. And my issue here, even though I like to conserve white, is that I need some very bright clarifying white. And I've got my zinc white right here. But right now, at this red hot minute, I'm going to start with just a smidge of my cad yellow and my white. See how bright that is? Powerful stuff. Glazing if I need it. I'm going to come here and just make sure that right here behind the trees where it's going to be glazing out, okay, where it's going to be glazing out, I'm just dusting a little bit of this sunlight feeling. Dry brushing, soft brush strokes radiating around. If I have too much paint on it, I'm going to empty my brush. Now I'm going to get a little zinc. Still use some glazing meaning if I need to. Zinc white or mixing white has a much lower tinting strength than titanium white and can help me succeed in areas where I need a mild tint, but I don't want something that powerful. And you can see what I mean, where you could just use titanium white and still be okay, but I really want us to have this experience right here. Now, I'm going to get one of my dome brushes. I really like dome brushes. Domes make easy work of cloud effects. You can do these with brights. You can do these with lots of shapes. Sometimes domes, I just like to rely on them because they have these soft, rounded shapes. And so even if I'm painting realistic clouds as I see them, this can be something that's beneficial to me in that goal. And I'm going to get a little of my glazing and a little of my zinc white, pulling this out. And I'm going to make some cold weather upper atmosphere clouds. This is about these light brush strokes with just a little gasp or wisp of white. See that? Just a little gasp or wisp. Just putting those a couple places and go back and forth like this. There might be a group of them just blowing up off the mountain. This is just a very clear day. Whatever was happening here is clearing. We don't have a blizzard coming in at all. Right? And the zinc just helps me. If I were to do this with titanium white, it'd be very easy for this to get overwhelmed and not have this feeling of these light bits of atmospheric effect. I'm going to push it up. I'm going to scrumble down. I'm going to be lighthearted about it. Maybe up here is a little bit of something. Just want to feel like I can see what's happening up there, right? Just a little bit. And in fact, I can take this and come between this mountain and make kind of a little fog space that's happening here. Going up. One of the things that I did is that I can take, now I'm going to use my little palette knife here, but you can use your brush. I'm going to make a grade color. Wipe that off. I want just a smidge of this. See how I'm just putting a smidge of it, a dust of it on my brush? I'm going to pull this into the zinc. And I'm going to push this out like that there's a bank of clouds or something right here between these two mountain shapes. Not a lot. Take your time. This is not something you have to do, but I wanted to talk about how this was done. Now I pulled some more just pure zinc and I'm going to come along the top and dash that around so that our atmosphere, so that these little bank shapes, you know, they have something. back up into the sky. So there's the low bank between the mountains. I've got what's happening up in the clouds. You know, always come through and say, oh, I feel there'd be more condensation right here. Maybe there's a little bit right over here. If it gets away from you and you don't like it, let it dry and just paint your sky back in. It's a very simple sky, so don't stress about it. Practicing your landscape techniques is just about working on these skills and saying, hey, maybe I can make a little bit of dancing around high atmosphere clouds. So this is looking really good. This is looking really good. I'd like to put in some of my trees. Now I'm going to get a small brush. I think I'm going to take a number 4 bright with a nice sharp edge, and I'm going to draw in the base of my trees, which is, interestingly enough, my burnt sienna and my ultramarine blue. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to draw up this little line, thin, fine little line. And I'm going to come here. I'm going to drop this fine little line. You could do this in palette knife. You could do this in your brushes. This is just to let me know where my trees are going to be. And I'm not liking how this is holding its edge at all. So I'm going to grab a friend of his. I'm going to grab this friend that I think is going to hold its edge a lot better. If whenever you're painting with a brush, if you don't like how it's behaving, definitely switch out. So I'm going to drag off the extra water, load back up, feeling better already. Making sure that this is like this. Pulling this up. All right, I like the placement of all of these. And then we've got to make 2 friends over here in the shadows as well. So at the back of this shadow, I'm going to drop up a nice little tree. And I think over here, a shorter, more stately little friend. I like to let my line not be real rigid and straight, and that's because it helps me remember that at the tree when I'm doing. Now I've got to run a little line of trees back here, and I want to make sure that they appear to be seamless behind the trees that I'm painting up front. So I'm going to wash this out, put this to the side, and I'm going to get a teeny tiny brush, which is the best brush to do far away little things with. This is a number 2. I'm going to load it up. Maybe a little brown on it. Make them seem far away and grayed out. And then I'm going to just come along here, dabbing up and down, distant little trees that are living in this this is like maybe at the beginning of the deciduous forest. The size of these trees and the objects in relationship to each other determines the depth of your painting. So if these trees were really big, it would pull them closer to these trees and push that mountain farther away from where we are. They're going into the clouds here, so they're going to show less. Right? See how I'm letting them show less here? I think I'm going to show a little less. And then here, they're not in that cloud bank, so they're going to show a little more. These are just not real perfect little brush strokes, right? These are just little distant impressions of what trees feel like. They go up and down. They're not all the same. They're not like a comb, and they're not like a saw blade. Some are taller. Some little areas maybe don't have as many trees that are growing up. You know, a little bit taller. I like to try to make sure that I'm not repeating my patterns so that it feels like what a distant forest would feel like. Just take this all the way to this here. I don't have to carry this over at all, because we really will be painting so solidly in front of it that it won't have any impact. There we go. Step back, look at what you've got, assess if you like it, rinse that out, and get back to your stately little number 4. Now I might need to put out a little more ultramarine, because while I have too much phthalo blue, I didn't have enough ultramarine. And that's paint management. That happens to me a lot when I'm filming, because I'm always wanting you to see the paint clearly, so sometimes I put out more than I might normally. I want this deep, dark, bluish gray color. This is very important to this type of winter landscape. And this technique, which we're going to cover and cover and cover, is really, really going to be helpful. The top of the tree, I'm going to, on the corner of this brush, just tap down this sort of random shape. Make sure your brush is loaded at the tips of the bristles as much as possible. And now take a little branch out to the side here. Not a big one, just a little bit of one. I look very carefully at a tree reference when I'm trying to do this, so that I'm capturing that feeling that one has when you're looking at actual trees. Because branches are, well, they're kind of a hot little mess. And it's important to capture that individuality that trees just so completely possess. Alright, pulling out some more paint, loading the brush, making sure it's more blue. If you need to wipe off your brush, go ahead and do so. Just keep, maybe this branch goes out like this. A lot of these will be lost in the reflection of the sunlight that is peeking through these branches, and some of the detail of these branches will be lost to their buddy next to them. As I'm coming down, these branches will be weighted and they will pull out wider. You can kind of think of this as a very tall cone. In fact, if you think about your decor, you've probably seen trees expressed as cones. What makes these feel like trees and not just weird silhouettes of strangeness is that when we put the snow on them, we'll start to give them value and shape. We'll make some of these branches feel like they're very, very... Here we go. Push this one out and you can pull that down. On these, when I start to get more defined, I might pull some weight down. That branches. And also I have to remember that I've got 4 front branches. Branches that are closer to me and branches that are farther away from me. So I want to make sure I leave room to express that, which is going to be done entirely in the snow. So what you're building now is good architecture. Build some good architecture. Otherwise, it won't make no sense what you're doing. As you come down here, you can fill it out more. Just keep going. More blue to darken it. Brown will warm it up. Blue will darken and cool it and make it deeper shadows. Now at this point, I'm going to make sure that I'm coming way out here. Coming way out there. See? Like a skirt, almost in a sense. All right. This little friend here has got to have some stuff going on. Make sure that that's good. All right, same thing. Smaller tree, so it's more weighed down by the snow that's on it. So the branches are closer into the tree. So what I'm paying attention to is shapes. I want this tree to be in front, but I'll do that when I'm painting the snow. This can go off the canvas over here. Oh, I might even need some more paint in a minute. Really going through the ultramarine blue today. Okay, up here. Let's make sure that we've got some branches coming down. I'm still working from the corner of my brush, putting out a little more ultramarine. I want this tree to have each kind of a little personality. I think it's super important that you think about the personalities your tree has. Personally, I think it's even great to kind of tell an internal story whenever you're creating a landscape. Even if you're out there painting from real life, I think it's like very important to imagine the story of where you are so that you can be part of that story and create some of that connection in your art. Let's keep going. We'll pull a little of this out, pull a little of my burnt sienna out, and I'm going to just keep going because I'm having such a good time I don't want to stop. Working the corner of my brush. Could I do this with another kind of brush? Yes. I've seen people do an amazing job painting with sticks, with palette knives. There's palette knife painters that paint realism now. It's about you. What's happening in your painting is about you. My telling you what I'm using is about me being honest about how I'm doing it. So I'm not holding stuff back from you. You might have a different way, a better way, and that's okay. You know, there are a lot of amazing, differently abled painters, and they might use different tools and materials, but they're still going to get amazing results. Just don't ever feel limited. Take all this information for what it is. Helpful insight into what I've got going on. Now I'm going to really pull quite a lot of blue into this. Just make sure that underneath these trees, I'm creating an even darker shadow. Yes, I'm going to go back through and highlight with some snow, but that's just a really helpful thing to do at this stage. Coming along. Let's get these two forerunners over here, these two little new bucks on the hill. These guys are new. The other trees don't really know what they think of them yet because they're new. Their seeds were dropped not that long ago. Maybe they think they know everything. They got a new way of being trees. The other trees just don't know what to make of that. See? I have a story. Have a story in your painting. See if it doesn't make that time that you spend in your art more enjoyable for you. Oh, I like this. Hope you like this. Just trying to capture my tree's shape. I'm going to pull a little branch out here. So for me, the tree already has the snow on it in my mind. In my mind, I already see these forward branches. I'm already seeing where my branches are going and why they're there. Sometimes when you're painting along with me, you might not see the finished product yet in your head, but know that'll come in time. That's why it's always good to keep the reference where you can see it, so you don't feel lost. But just know, someday, you'll see it in your head too. Someday, the act of painting is just finishing the work you already did mentally. A lot of times when I'm painting, I've been painting in my head for weeks, working on an idea, thinking on an idea. And then the act of getting it to canvas is just sort of a strange afterthought. All right, I'm going to add that little shadow underneath. You should always add your shadows. Where's the sun? Sun's right here, so it's going to be casting a shadow. Okay. All right. That is looking so good. Now, I'm going to first make sure, I'm going to try to do this with my 4. I may need to come down to a 2, but I'm going to start trying with my 4. My advice is whenever you're using a brush, when you start out, if you're just like, wow, this is really uncomfortable, always feel like it's okay for you to change. It's okay for you to be like, you know, I see you doing this, but for me it needs to be this. That is always okay. I'm going to start out with the 4, see how it goes. I'm going to add some white to this gray color I painted my trees in. Maybe I want it to be just a little more blue, but I want this to be deep and gray. See that? Very different than the white that's over here. And this is the beginning of the snow, because my snow on this side is in shadow, isn't it? So come up on the branch you have here, and just a little dash. Then I'm going to add a little snow to the top of that branch. What am I going to do here? I'm going to add a little snow at the corner of my brush to the top of this branch. Little branch here in the middle has some snow. Down this guy. Now we're going to lose some of these to the sunlight. Expect that to happen. Here's a little branch right there in the middle. Little water, back into this, loading to the tip of my brush. Coming out this snowy branch, out this snowy branch. Let's pull some more white in there. Keep it gray though, keep it deep. Just putting some here. Now there's a little branch that's going to come down here. Has a little branch that comes off this way. Let's drop some snow on top of that one. Snowfall has happened recently. Believe it or not, the snow is an insulator to these trees. It helps them survive the winter. Make sure that this is quite dark. I don't want no bright snow yet. Now, here's a little branch that's going to come down. And then it's going to have a little friend there. I mean, a little friend there. Some snow off this side. Some snow off this side. Here we go. That's fun. Right there. Right down the middle there. See the up close. Now right here, one thing I might do is I might draw a line down, draw a little line off, and a little line off before I tap my snow in, just to help me remember this branch is closer to me. This branch is off to the side. This branch is in front of this tree. We're doing object layering. So what we're saying is this tree now, we're pushing these 2 trees behind us, is the closest to what we've got going on. Just keep mixing out that gray. Let's put some snowy branches down here, and maybe there's a snowy branch there, and let's dab a little snowy branch up there. Some there. See? We're not done. There's more work to be done on this snow. Now I'm going to come here. Just adding the snow on some branches here. Then I'm going to come over to this little guy. No reason to leave it ignored. Branch there. Oh, what's happened? So much snow has landed on me. I'm so worn out from snow. Just keep that gray going. Oh yeah. Sometimes that happens, little tree. Snow is just tough. Lands and weighs down your branches. Now, with the highlights and the lowlights, these trees are starting to become these snowy little sentinels, guarding the mountain, thinking about their time here. Good stuff. Here we go. A little bit right there. These two hooligans, they need some snow. I'm going to push the paint off my brush, out of my ferrule. I may even have to wipe it out of my ferrule. Load back to the tip. Go back to my work. My hard artist work. Adding snowy branches to cheeky little adolescent trees that live in the mountains. Because that's their job. Your job is to make these trees rethink how they see the world. If they don't do their job, how will we ever change? That's not what I tell myself when my daughter is doing it, but it is what it is, isn't it? Dropping these little snowy branches. Isn't that fun? That's so fun. All right, last one with the gray snow, right? In this just punchy, happy little mountain landscape. Oh, I like that. Rinse out your brush. Now the last little bits here, to me, it's like that finishing flowers on frosting a cake, or that last little flourish, is when a painting suddenly goes pop. I think what happens to most acrylic artists when they're painting, and especially landscape painting, is they never get far enough along. They're kind of midway in the painting and it's not popping for them yet. They're expecting it to pop early, and so they're not feeling that satisfaction. But right here, right now, that's your moment. This is when it's going to all come together for you. So let's get ready for that, because it is the fun part. All right, let's cast some sunlight and some special fun on these trees. I'm going to pull out just some white here. This is fun stuff. And just a couple places, like right here, I'm going to add a little highlight. This third value. Mostly to these edges here, because the tree snow here might not be that bright. And if you need it to be just a little muted but still bright, you go back into your gray, but you want it to be lighter. And that's how you can highlight the inside of this so it's still popping. And I'm just having so much fun I can't stop. Hopefully you're just going, oh, this is where it happens. I see it. I see my trees. I might dust my brush with a little gray. Now that we're into the shadow, up here being the brightest. Here's the lumps. Pretty spectacular stuff. The front sentinel, he is now quite stately, isn't he? Just dusting a little of this gray paint on my brush. Just don't want it to be titanium white. Is so white. I think sometimes people don't realize how powerful this white is. Why it's nice sometimes to have a little zinc on the palette, or a little mixing white, is because titanium white can be in landscape painting just too much. Like it might have been a little much up in the clouds. It's a choice. It's a preference. There's not a right or wrong. There's just what people enjoy in their creative practice. Now I'm going to keep my light colors mostly on the left side of my tree, because the sunlight is hitting it. See? A little bit here and there, but mostly to that side. Same thing here. Just a little bit more. To the left side of the tree. Now you can obviously have way too much cad yellow out. I'm going to rinse my brush off. Way too much. Oh, we forgot to add snow to our little friend here. who is feeling lonely and ignored and just not loved. But we got to go back and give some love, don't we? We don't want them to feel not as special. I'm going to keep that just going. Right there on that outer edge, maybe a little bit there. There we go. Just a little something to say, hey, I too stand in the sun. All right, now we'll rinse out. Something fun we can do is we can add a little of this bright light. I'm going to just dust. If I have to, I might get the zinc. I just want much more mellow. You can do the titanium one if you want. And we're going to just, a couple of places, right there, kiss a little of this more yellow light to the branch. It's important stuff. Put up a little yellow. Got my zinc. You can do your titanium white. I might even come on my hill here and just add a little of this where my highlights are. See that? Doesn't that add another dimension? Maybe along here. Just a little of that. Shining through the two trees here up front. And let's really, really take the front of these guys. It's a kiss, is my recommendation. Just kiss it. Now, I really, a lot of people really happy here, but I really like the solar flare effect. I kind of need that drama on my painting. I always like to say, drama on my canvas, not in my life. This is a great place to put some drama that isn't in your life, right on your canvas, just to give you that big pop when you look at this on the wall so you feel really great about it. I'm going to get my number 4 bright out, rinsed out really, really well. I'm going to get into just a smidge scotch. I might even have to wipe it off of my cad yellow onto my white, which you can see is really loaded. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to, right here, place this sort of highlight. You see that right there? This highlight of light. And then I'm going to pull a line straight up. Maybe one down. Then I'm going to just start like a wheel. Start pulling this out. It's very light. It's a dry brush. I'm going to get some more white on my brush. So I want it to be a very bright light. I don't want to take away all the work that I have going. I just want to show this incredible clarity that you can get in certain lights. You know, when you're blinded, when you look up between two trees and get blinded by the sun. It's incredible, isn't it? When you've walked somewhere amazing. But you know, even if for some reason you can't walk somewhere amazing and see this, you can paint this. You can be there in your mind. If you're stuck and you can't go, just painting that, dabbing that around. Step back and look at that. See if there's anything you want to soften. Kind of want to soften right here. There we go. Letting the tip of that tree just peek out. Just this whole thing work. Take it in. And then you have to decide, is there something you want to add? Is there something you want to take away, or is it ready to sign? For me, I feel like this piece is ready to sign, so I'm going to get my favorite signing brush out, and I'm going to put my name somewhere on the canvas that makes me happy. That was really exciting. I hope you're so proud of what you did. I hope you're like, wow, I can do this. I can do more of this. I want you to keep painting. I want you to keep being good about yourself. Remember to tell stories in your paintings. Go ahead and check out theartsherpa.com, and I want to see you at the easel really soon. Bye-bye.